Hello again. One of the things which I love about official reports these days is that they are usually designed to confuse readers and conceal information rather than to explain what is actually happening. I looked earlier at a job description for decolonising a museum, which contained literally no information at all. This should not surprise us because it is in concealing the ill effects of multiculturalism and immigration that this deliberately misleading language is used to greatest effect. Take a report published earlier this year by the government's Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities. The title of the report could hardly be vaguer. It is called Understanding Ethnic Disparities in Involvement in Crime, a Limited Scope Rapid Evidence Review. I love the phrase involvement in crime. This is social worker speak for what you and I call criminals, and the report is really looking at foreign criminals, although nobody would ever dream of calling them that these days. A desperate attempt is made to conceal the fact that some crimes are nearly always committed by immigrants and their offspring. But it is when you drill down, you see how easy it is to fall into the use of that jargon. Drill down. I've seen that a lot lately. I thought I'd try that one out when I'm going to drill down into the statistics on the report. At any rate, I should say, when you look more closely at it, that's when the truth emerges. I provide a link to this report in the description to this video. Once you've ploughed through the references to what is delicately described as acquisitive violence, that's what ordinary people call mugging and robbery with violence, by the way, then some interesting facts emerge. However artfully the academics who put this together try to hide what they've discovered by using a lot of long words and coining expressions which they've dreamed up. I want to look this morning at one particular section of the report. It's headed Patterns of Ethnic Disparity in Organised Crime Groups, OCGs, as this relates to county lines, because it's a particularly good example of the way that you have to look very closely before you can work out what is actually being said and what you can learn from it. County lines are networks which begin in London, Liverpool, Manchester and other cities with large numbers of immigrants and foreigners and transport drugs like cannabis, cocaine and heroin to rural villages and towns, places which were previously free of this scourge. In short, they created drug problem in places where this hadn't been known before. Who is behind this awful business? The report is at first coy about this, saying there are powerful limitations in the available data and existing analysis of county lines offending. This is confirmed by a report from the National Crime Agency, NCA 2017, which argues that the assessment of this OCG activity across the UK is marred by limitations of police data capture. Don't you talk good, folks? All that this means is that the police don't know as much about this criminal racket as they would like to. As you would expect, we learn that London is identified as the primary exporting hub, with 65% of the UK's police forces reporting lines into their jurisdiction originating in the capital. In short, London is contaminating roughly 2/3 of the country with their criminal activity in this field. The expression nominals is used to try and throw more sand in our eyes. Nominals simply means people whose name the police know who are dealing in drugs and arranging for them to be sent into the provinces. We are told London nominals were reported to be mainly black. Now, who would have guessed that? 2/3 of Britain is having a problem with black drug dealers. It was well worth commissioning a report to find that out, as if any normal person doubted it for a moment. However, just to balance this, we are also told that in Liverpool and Manchester, Nominals were mostly white. Ah, so it's not just a black thing after all, is the impression we are supposed to take from this. It is the last few lines of this section which give the game away. I quote, Somali nationals were referenced by 33% of police forces, with lines predominantly originating in London and Manchester, and Western Balkan organised crime groups were referenced by 9% of police forces. So when we are told that the people running county lines in Liverpool and Manchester are mostly white, this does not mean that ordinary English people are mixed up in this business. Western Balkan organised crime groups is, of course, sociologists speak for Albanian gangsters. Almost 10% of rural areas of Britain are now being supplied with illegal drugs by Albanians. It is the Somali Connection, though, which really stands out here. There are just 108,000 Somalis living in this country, something like 0.2% of the population, a fifth of 1%. And yet they are responsible for a third of the drug trafficking to our villages and towns. In other words, they exert an influence on this criminal enterprise roughly 150 times greater than their proportion of the population would suggest. People living in large cities, such as London and Birmingham, have long known that the drug trafficking is chiefly in the hands of foreigners. But until a few years ago, people living in out-of-the-way towns and villages in the countryside were free of this malign influence. Now, a third of British counties are infested with Somali drug dealers, and almost 1 in 10 are falling prey to Albanian gangsters intent on selling drugs to their children. Colleges and even sixth forms in small towns are targeted by these people, and there seems little that the police can do to stop it. Because of this, the problem is just hidden away in obscure passages like the one to which I give a link, where no ordinary person is likely to come across it. Even if they do, it is written in such an extraordinary style that the full implications might easily escape them.